More than 3 kilometers beneath the North Atlantic seabed lies the remains of a ship whose name became a universal symbol of ambition, tragedy, and remembrance. At the beginning of the 20th century, great ocean liners connected Europe and America, carrying wealthy travelers, hopeful migrants, mail, cargo, and dreams across the Atlantic. Shipping companies competed for speed, luxury, and prestige. White Star Line answered its rivals by planning 3 enormous vessels designed to redefine comfort at sea. The new Olympic-class liners would prioritize size, reliability, and elegance. Titanic, the second ship of the class, was intended to represent modern engineering at its finest. Construction began in Belfast in 1909. Thousands of workers assembled a vast steel hull using millions of rivets, heavy machinery, and demanding manual labor. Shipbuilding was exhausting and dangerous. Riveters worked in deafening conditions, while men high above the ground shaped a vessel larger than almost anything previously constructed. Gradually, Titanic's famous profile emerged: a black hull, white superstructure, 4 funnels, and immense decks capable of carrying more than 2,000 people. On 31st May 1911, Titanic entered the water for the first time. Thousands watched as the unfinished giant slid from the shipyard into the Belfast lough. For almost another year, craftsmen transformed the empty hull into a floating palace, filled with carved wood, electric lighting, and luxurious furnishings. First-class passengers enjoyed grand suites, fine restaurants, reading rooms, a gymnasium, Turkish baths, and the magnificent staircase that became Titanic's most celebrated interior. Third-class accommodation was simpler but considered comfortable for its time. Many passengers were emigrants seeking employment, security, and a new beginning in America. Deep inside the ship, hundreds of engineers, firemen, and trimmers kept 29 boilers operating, feeding the engines that would drive Titanic across the ocean. 16 watertight bulkheads formed the foundation of Titanic's safety system. Designers believed the ship could remain afloat after several compartments had been flooded. Titanic carried 20 lifeboats, enough for only about half the people aboard. The number nevertheless exceeded the outdated legal requirement governing ships of her size. In early April 1912, Titanic reached Southampton. Supplies were loaded, crew members reported for duty, and preparations began for the ship's maiden Atlantic crossing. On Wednesday, 10th of April, passengers boarded Titanic. Some arrived with servants and expensive luggage. Others carried nearly everything they owned, in a few cases. Shortly after noon, Titanic began her maiden voyage. As the liner moved away, her displacement caused another vessel to break loose and swing dangerously close. That evening, Titanic stopped near Cherbourg, France at sunset. Tenders delivered additional passengers, including several of the wealthiest and most prominent travelers aboard the ship. The following day, Titanic made her final European stop at Queenstown. Hundreds boarded before the ship turned west toward the open Atlantic. For many emigrants, this was their final view of Europe. Behind them lay familiar homes. Ahead waited an uncertain future in the United States. During the first days, the voyage appeared routine. Passengers explored the ship, attended meals, wrote letters, exercised, played games, and enjoyed remarkably calm weather. In first class, elaborate dinners lasted for hours. Wealth, fashion, and conversation filled rooms designed to rival the finest hotels in London or Paris. Below, third-class passengers formed their own temporary community. Different languages, songs, stories, and ambitions came together during the journey toward New York. Wireless operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride transmitted passenger messages and received communications from other ships, including reports of ice along Titanic's route. Throughout 14 April, several vessels reported icebergs and field ice. Some warnings reached the bridge, while others remained among the growing wireless traffic. As Sunday evening approached, the air became sharply colder. The sea was unusually calm, making waves around distant icebergs almost impossible to detect. Captain Edward Smith retired for the night after speaking with his officers. Titanic continued westward at high speed beneath a clear, moonless sky. High in the crow's nest, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee searched the darkness. Without moonlight or breaking water, the horizon offered almost no warning. At approximately 11:40 p.m., Fleet saw a dark shape ahead. He rang the warning bell 3 times and telephoned the bridge. Iceberg, right ahead. First Officer William Murdoch ordered a turn and changed the engines. Titanic's bow began swinging away, but the enormous ship could not respond quickly enough. The iceberg passed along Titanic's starboard side. The impact felt slight to many passengers, but damage below opened multiple compartments to the sea. Water poured into the forward holds, boiler rooms, and mailroom, retreating. Titanic's watertight compartments slowed the flooding, but too many had been breached. Designer Thomas Andrews inspected the damage and reached a devastating conclusion. Titanic would sink, although the ship still appeared calm and almost perfectly stable. Captain Smith ordered the lifeboats prepared and wireless distress calls transmitted. Many passengers initially struggled to believe the luxurious liner was genuinely in danger. Phillips repeatedly transmitted Titanic's position using both CQD and SOS signals. Nearby ships received the calls, but help remained hours away. Officers began loading women and children. Confusion over procedures, disbelief among passengers, and different interpretations of orders caused several early boats to leave partly empty. Across the boat deck, families faced impossible decisions. Husbands watched wives and children descend toward the ocean, not knowing whether they would ever meet again. Titanic's musicians reportedly continued playing as the evacuation progressed. Their music offered a fragile sense of order, while the ship settled deeper into the sea. The nearby Californian had stopped for ice. Crew members observed rockets in the distance, but their meaning was misunderstood, and the wireless operator had gone off duty. The passenger liner Carpathia received Titanic's distress call. Captain Arthur Roston immediately turned toward the coordinates and drove his ship through dangerous at maximum speed. After 2 o'clock, the remaining collapsible boats were swept in a manner way, released from Titanic. Titanic's bow sank lower, the deck angle increased, and organized evacuation became impossible. From the lifeboats, survivors watched the illuminated liner rise at an impossible angle. Titanic's electrical lights flickered while the ship's structure endured enormous stress. The Titanic hull finally broke apart between the forward and rear sections. The bow disappeared beneath the surface, while the stern remained between the black to ocean. At approximately 2:20 a.m. on 15th April, Titanic vanished. More than 1,500 passengers and crew were left in lethally cold Atlantic water. Carpathia arrived after 4 o'clock and began recovering survivors from the lifeboats. Dawn revealed calm water, scattered, and no trace of the great liner. News of the disaster traveled around the world. Families waited desperately for survivor lists, while newspapers struggled to explain how such a celebrated ship had been lost. Official inquiries exposed failures in lifeboat capacity, ice warnings, and emergency procedures. New maritime regulations followed. In 1985, explorers finally located Titanic's wreck. Titanic remains more than a shipwreck. It is a memorial to individual lives, human confidence, technological limits, and one unforgettable night on the Atlantic.